Hi, I'm Kelly Thomas. Welcome to Ingenious Baby. Every week I'll interview leading experts to help you help your child reach their full potential so that your child can become all that they were born to be. Today we're here with Claire Hoyt, who is the founder of Big Dipper Baby Food, whose mission is to provide nutritionally balanced food for future generations. We all know that our kids should eat healthy. The questions are, how do we get them to actually do it? How do we find the time? And how do we do it on a budget? Claire is here to answer all those questions. So thank you so much for being here, Claire.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.
Why do you feel like it's important for babies and children to eat healthy?
The way that we eat affects us at a cellular level, and it affects everything that we do in our days. It affects our productivity. It affects the way that we sleep at night. It affects our emotional regulation. It literally touches every aspect of our lives. Mm-hmm. So the quality of the foods that we eat have a direct impact on the quality of the lives that we live.
Are there any specific foods that optimize brain development specifically?
The healthy fats and the cholesterol are fantastic for brain development. Fat provides a really great energy source, and babies are developing at such an astronomically high rate. It's something that as adults we can't even really wrap our heads around, just how quickly they're changing, how much they're growing, and how much their brains are growing.
So are there any mistakes that parents make? They think they're feeding their kids something healthy, but really isn't?
I think one of the most common mistakes is probably rice cereal. As I mentioned before, the digestive tracts they're not equipped yet with all of the enzymes required to break down all foods, and the enzymes required to break down grains are developed later on, closer to 12 months. And what ends up happening is that babies eat food, like rice cereal, that they can't properly digest. They don't get the nutrients from it, and in the long run, it can cause allergies.
Oh, wow. So what about picky eaters? Are some babies just not going to eat healthy food? I mean, can you get everyone to eat healthy?
I think that you can get everyone to eat healthy. I think that we probably have in our minds that it can be a difficult task to accomplish because we think of ourselves as young adults or as adults, and maybe we've picked up unhealthy habits and we're trying to break bad habits. But starting really young, babies mimic what we do and follow our lead in every other way, and I don't think that food is any different than that. And one of the things that I have learned myself as a parent and advise other moms on is that don't give up when your child pushes back around healthy food, because they're going to do that for many years to come. So stay the course, be flexible, be creative, try to keep it fun. And I learned with my now 10-month-old son, when he was he just wasn't interested in eating. And it got to the point where he was 8 months old, and I began to get really scared that he wasn't getting the nutrients that he needed for his age, because he just would only eat a spoonful or two at a time. And here I am running a baby food company, and I have a baby that won't eat. The irony was not lost on me. But I checked into a couple of resources to refresh myself on, maybe there were some things I was forgetting, and I checked with my pediatrician, and the recommendations that she made were the things that really ended up working. And she suggested changing the timing that I offer him food. She suggested adding breast milk to the food because it was something that was familiar to him and might spark his interest a little bit more. And with just a couple of small adjustments, he turned into a total eater.
So that being said, what are the best first foods to offer?
First foods to offer, again, the ones that are easily digested. I really like mango as a good first food. Egg yolk is a great first food. Egg yolk is packed with a lot of great nutrients, and both egg yolk and bone broth is another one that I really like. Those are both animal products, and when you think about what babies have been eating up until that point, they've been fed an animal product up to that point, whether it's formula or whether it's breast milk. So making the switch to something like egg yolk or bone broth is a more gradual switch versus doing something like going from milk to rice cereal, which is quite a big change in the type of food that they're consuming.
I'd love for you to show us, the best way to prepare for meals for our baby, and show us how we can make this at home.
Sounds good.
So let's walk through meal planning and preparation for your baby. What do we have here?
So here we have a number of the tropical fruits that I was mentioning that are really great for aiding in digestion, and some of the foods that I was talking about that are great first foods. So we have mango here, which are everywhere right now and in season and super delicious. I tend to like these smaller ones. They're really creamy and yummy, although any mango will do. And in fact, if you're in a pinch and you wanted to feed your baby mango, frozen is totally fine. Frozen or harvested in season, flash frozen. It's one of the oldest methods and most natural methods of preservation. So if you're in a pinch and you want to get frozen mango, that's fine. We have papaya here, which is really simple to prepare. We would literally scoop out the seeds, and then you'd start to scoop out the flesh. You could throw that in a blender and blend it up, and maybe mix it with a little bit of coconut cream, and you have a really delicious puree. We have the bananas, which are, everybody knows what a banana is. The one thing with babies that you want to be sure to do is you want to get ones with lots of brown spots. The brown spots for a ripe banana help with the digestion. Kiwis are nice when babies are starting to want to feed themselves. So kiwis are a nice one to cut up into little small pieces, and when they're practicing with their fingers and getting their pincher grip, this is a good one. It's soft enough for them to be able to break up with their little gummy mouths, but gives them something firm to hold on to and grab for. And I've added a few other things here to add to simple blends. A little ginger root is great. That's a really great immune support root and anti-inflammatory, and it helps with digestion. So ginger is really nice to add to the mango, to the papaya, and it's really simple to prepare. You can use the back of a spoon or the back of a knife so you don't cut yourself, and you just sort of scrape off some of this outside peel. And it's funny because actually the back of a spoon I feel like works even better than a knife. And when you've scraped off the outside there, you can take a microplane and you literally just grate it into your baby's food before you blend it. And it doesn't take very much. You want just like a teaspoon or so, or half a teaspoon.
And babies like ginger?
You know, you can do it to taste. You don't have to put too much in there so it doesn't become like really fiery or spicy. A little goes a long way. And yes, it's delicious. One of my favorite blends is the mango with coconut cream and a little bit of fresh grated ginger or fresh grated turmeric. Super yummy.
Delicious.
Yeah. And then we have bone broth here, which is another great first food. The bone broth that's a little gooey and kind of gelatinous. That's a sign that you have a lot of gelatin, and the gelatin is where a lot of the nutrients are that are really good for babies and help line their intestinal tract. And then over here we have some really delicious oven roasted veggies. These were all done on the same sheet pan. These are 2 different roasted sweet potatoes, 2 different kinds, and literally just throw them into the oven, a hot oven, like 415 degrees, for about an hour. And what you get is this really delicious, super gooey, naturally caramelized flesh. And you can take this, scoop this into a blender and puree it. I like the orange sweet potato pureed with a little bit of broth, really good. My favorite sweet potato these days is a Japanese sweet potato, and the outside skin looks very similar to the yam, but the inside is this creamy yellow color. And this mixed with the coconut cream or coconut oil, maybe a little bit of cinnamon, is just delicious. I'm crazy about those Japanese sweet potatoes. This is butternut squash. It was tossed with a little olive oil. You could also toss it with coconut oil for a healthy fat. Throw it on the sheet pan, and you can see that it's gotten a little bit of like a little crispy golden there. That's delicious. It just adds to the flavor. And I like roasting instead of steaming. The roasting concentrates the flavors. It brings out some of the natural sugars and caramelizes, and it really just concentrates the flavor. So you end up with a single ingredient product that's really healthy for your baby and that tastes delicious. So you're helping with palate development. You're introducing your baby to foods that are really great for them and that are really delicious tasting. This guy is now a very wilted apple, but again, you just put this on a sheet pan in the oven, a whole apple, and you cook it until they're splitting on the sides and all of the juices are running out. And if with a towel, you would squeeze it and it's really, really soft. And now you have this really delicious baked apple that literally tastes like apple pie filling, but you haven't actually added any sugar to it. It's just its own thing. And when after I've let it cool, I just sort of peel off the skins. And you can also core this ahead of time. You could core the apple and make this process even simpler. But you peel back some of the skin, peel off this apple. The bottom got cooked a little harder. That's okay though. And you have this apple that it's almost applesauce.
Oh, wow.
As it is.
Looks delicious.
And
yeah.
you could cut it into little pieces, and this would be a really great little finger food, again, for a baby that's ready. Yeah, it's soft. They can mash it up with their little gummy mouths, and that's great. And I like the apple also combined with the butternut squash or parsnips.
Do you have a basic shopping list for parents that when they're first buying food, they've never had a baby, where do they find and what should they look for when they are shopping?
Thanks to customer demand, finding good organic produce and meats has become fairly ubiquitous. And you can find it even at large mainstream retailers like Safeways and Lucky's. Almost everybody now carries great organic food, organic produce, and organic meats. My basic shopping list, something that I always have in the house, I always have banana, I always have avocado. I probably always have the apples, and when the mangoes are around, I am crazy about those, and then I always have a couple of the sweet potatoes. In my cupboard, I keep the coconut oil, and I tend to have stock on hand also because just as our family eats probably a roast chicken once a week, which means that we're making stock once a week.
Okay.
And so we tend to have bone broth, and even if you make it once every 2 months, it makes so much that you can break it into small bags, freeze it, and one chicken will give you enough stock to last your family quite a long time.
So your stock is coming from the foods you're making. Can you actually buy
Yes.
quality bone broth too?
You definitely can. Bone broth has made this like huge resurgence, and you can kind of find it everywhere now. People have really made an effort to make higher quality broth than what we found just a few years ago in the center aisle, which was like cans of chicken stock. And the stuff now that you can find generally in the refrigerated section from small batch purveyors is really fantastic. So if you don't want to break down your own chicken carcass and boil it for 18 hours, you can definitely go to that's probably going to be more of like a Whole Foods purchase or like a Molly Stone's, where you can find the higher quality bone broths in the refrigerated section.
Yeah, so why stay in the refrigerated section? Why not? What's wrong with buying something in a can or?
That's a great question. My rule of thumb these days is that the shorter the shelf life, the more nutritious the food. Food that is really living doesn't last for as long. So, and those foods are generally found in the perimeter of the grocery store. That's where you get your fresh produce. That's where you get your fresh meats. That's where you even get your fresh bread. It's all stuff that's found in the perimeter of the grocery store. In order to give food a really long shelf life in the center aisles, it needs to be pretty heavily processed. A lot of times that means high heat processing, which kills off a lot of the vital nutrients. And as well, it requires additives. And in order to make all of that food taste good after processing it so hard, you have to add a lot of sugar and salt. So it's kind of just a good rule of thumb to shop the perimeter of the grocery store. You'll find fresher foods there.
So this looks a little bit expensive, buying all organic foods. What about people who are on a budget? And they still want to feed their kids healthy, but they need to do it on a budget. Can this be accomplished still?
I think it definitely can. And if you think about a single pouch of a baby food blend, if you're getting organic pouches of baby food blends from the center aisle, you're spending about $1.60 to $2.59. And you can cook a single one of these potatoes, which will run you 75 cents to $1, and you'll probably get 2 to 3 meals out of that. So I think that it's actually less expensive to go ahead and cook your own food. The flip side of that is the time that it takes to do it.
I was going to ask you about that. A
Yeah.
lot of moms are really busy. This looks, like you need to spend a lot of time shopping and so forth. What do you recommend to moms to don't have a lot of time.
Definitely, and that's what led me towards this baby food company, was that I loved making this food, but I was running out of time. So I think a couple of things. One of them is plan, just like if you want to start working out, you have to sort of schedule it into your routine.
Right.
So I think scheduling something realistic into your routine, maybe that means once a week you're going to cook food for your baby, say on Sunday. That means Saturday you do some grocery shopping, Sunday you do some meal prep. And make sure that you make it in large batches so that you can freeze it in your ice cube trays. And then also keep on hand a couple of really simple foods that you can just make that don't require any cooking, and foods that you can make at last second in your home, like Tuesday night when you've come home from work and you're tired. For me, that's often the mango with the coconut cream. And, to mix it up and help my baby develop his palate, I'll add fresh herbs. This is mint, which is super yummy to add to that blend. The ginger, the turmeric. So I would just keep a couple of really easy to break down fresh fruits on hand for the week, and then commit one day a week to making a larger batch of food that you can keep in the freezer.
So a lot of the stuff you can cook and then it tastes and keeps well.
It does. There's nothing on this table that you can't freeze. Everything in here you could blend and you could freeze, and I recommend doing that. And what you'll find is that one week you'll make sweet potatoes and you'll have a large batch of that, and then the next week you'll do apples and you'll have a large batch of that, and then 2 weeks later you can combine the two and you can melt, you can defrost some apple, defrost some sweet potato, mix them together.
That's great, yeah.
And maybe you have a little cinnamon on hand and you dash that in there, and now you have this really yummy homemade nutrient-dense dish.
What are your favorite resources for bringing, cooking these foods?
Well, one of my favorite resources is the Super Nutrition for Babies, which is really like a deep dive into what I feel like is really good for babies and not what we've been told commercially is good for babies for like the last 60 to 80 years. Right. This brings in a lot of traditions that have been around for quite a long time. They have stuff in here about how to make a great stock, about starting off with proteins, the best veggies and fruits to start out with. They talk a lot about when to start introducing grains, dairy, all of that. So that's one of my favorite books. And then the other one is Mark Bittman's How to Cook Everything. I chose vegetarian because a lot of parents talk about the struggles that they encounter once their children start to pick up their own food and eat their own food, that a lot of times they just want Cheerios and pastas and they struggle to get vegetables into their diet.
Right.
So this is a really great book because he provides tons of really tasty vegetarian dishes that are easy for the beginner chef all the way up through like an advanced chef.
That's great.
So that's one of my favorites. As you can see, I've used it quite a bit.
So I would like to talk about what are your favorite blends, and tell us more about where we can find more information on how to find your products.
Great.
So I hear your favorite taste tester is here. I'd like to hear more about what his favorite blends are.
Excellent. Well, let's bring Thatcher on. Come here, little baby. Hi. This is Thatcher. And his favorite blends are the Marrow Mood. Yeah. And this one has apples, roasted parsnips, beef marrow, and cardamom. And then the other one is the Spinach Sublime, and this one is roasted pears, spinach, coconut oil, and fresh mint. We're all over Northern California, growing sort of week by week.
Do you have a website people can go for more information?
Definitely, bigdipperbabyfood.com. And that'll have a list of our blends and the stores where you can get us.
Well, thank you so much for all of this, and it was very informative, so I appreciate you coming on to share all your insight about preparing healthy food for your baby.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.
If you know someone who'd be a great fit for the show, come on over to ingeniousbaby.com and share your tips and story ideas. You are your baby's first and best teacher.